Hello, everyone. I'm Sameer Bhanushali, MD and CEO of Ashapura Agricomm Private Limited. We are based out of Mumbai, and we've been dealing in dry fruits since last 20 years. So, a very interesting topic very close to my heart, and I'm going to speak about the dry fruit business in India and globally. In terms of the opportunities and challenges that it possesses. So, dry fruits in India actually go a long way. We as consumers in India have been consuming almonds, cashews since time immemorial. Actually, we've all been as kids fed almonds, walnuts, and other dry fruits for healthy brain and healthy heart. So it's nothing new for us, although it was very nascent in those days. If you talk about 1980s and 1990s, the consumption of dry fruits in India was very limited. Over the last 35 years, the consumption of dry fruits in India has really expanded. And especially post-COVID, you can really see the shift that has happened in terms of the consumption of dry fruits in India. Which are the prominent dry fruits? Which are the prominent dry fruits that India imports and also produces? So basically, some of the dry fruits are cashews, raisins, and walnuts. These are actually grown in India and are also imported. However, almonds, the one of the most important dry fruits, almonds, pistachios, hazelnuts, figs, apricots, all of these berries and all, they are all imported. And they're imported from all around the world, mainly from, say, North America, Middle East, then Southeast Asia as well, and Africa as well. So all our dry fruits that we consume today come from almost a huge expanse of countries. What it does is it brings you delicious nuts and fruits from all the corners of the world, but it also presents a lot of challenges. It's not easy to move stuff from the farms in far away lands like California and Mexico and Latin America, Chile, and bring them to your table, keeping it fresh and without any troubles or issues. So we are going to talk about the opportunities and challenges in each commodity. I'm going to pick up few major commodities and give you a brief about those commodities, what all these commodities mean to India and how much volumes is done into India, plus what are the challenges with these commodities. Beginning with almonds, which is right now, along with cashews, these two are the most important and the biggest contributor to the dry fruit basket in India. So almonds basically are all imported. India doesn't produce any almonds, and it's a very unique commodity actually. So even if you look at the global production, 85% of the almond production comes from one state in USA, California. So that's pretty unique for a commodity to be able to be grown in just one state, even in a country as big as the United States of America. The rest of the almonds, they come from Australia and Iran. Now, Iranian almonds, we've actually all grown up eating Iranian almonds because those were the ones who were first available in India. They were called mamra. I'm sure all of us have heard this term, mamra badam, which is the Iranian almonds. Now, what happened is that it was actually an Iranian product, but Iran was never able to grow the production. And they always were able to only produce what they used to produce in the 1980s and 90s. However, this product then moved to California, and America started producing this in a big way, in a massive way. So today, what we consume is 90% Californian almonds, and only 10% is your Iranian Mamra almonds in India. Now, what California has done with massive, large-scale mechanized production is that they have been able to keep the prices of almonds pretty low, right, over the period of time. If you look at the historical prices of almonds, Today in 2024, we are actually consuming almonds at a cheaper price than in 2010. That's pretty unique, right? It beats all the inflation ideas, all the inflation targets that anybody has, that a product cannot be, today, any product cannot be cheaper than what they were priced at in 2010. But almonds is very unique in that sense because of large scale production and increased supply coming out of California. And what that has done is the low pricing has really increased the consumption in India and globally as well. You know, it has just fueled this consumption in terms of snack, in terms of ingredient, in terms of products made out of almonds because it is so cheap. You know, and it is very healthy. You know, it's one of the healthiest food product to eat. You know, it is so high in plant protein, it is so high in all the essential minerals and the amino acids and a lot of other things. So it's like a super food, and that's available to you today at a very cheap price. So with that, the consumption in India is actually today, as we speak, is more than 12,000 crores on a B2B level. On a retail level, this will be anywhere close to 16, 17,000 crores. Now that's massive. You know, we consume that much almonds. That's kind of huge. Uh, India right now is the largest export market for Californian almonds, and we have doubled the consumption in the last 4 to 5 years. Post COVID, our consumption has almost doubled. So that's testimony to the fact that Indians have realized that we need to eat healthy and good superfood. So almond really fits into that, and it's pretty cheap. It's very affordable to even a middle class citizen of India. So that's about almonds in a nutshell. We'll move to another massive product or a huge dry fruit commodity, that's cashews. So cashew is actually an Indian product. It was traditionally grown in India, and it was also consumed in India in the biggest way. So we were actually the largest producers of cashews and also largest consumers of cashew back in the 1980s and 1990s. As we progressed, as the country grew and the appetite for this nut kept growing, India could not keep up with the production, and so today we have to import a lot of cashews from Africa, right? So the way this industry works is that India imports a lot of RCN, which is raw cashew nut, from countries like Tanzania, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Benin, then Guinea-Bissau, and all these countries based out of Africa. And we have processing units spread across India. And these processing units process these raw cashews and make the final product that we consume today. When you look at cashews is not only consumed as a snack. It's a very delicious snack when it's roasted, salted, when it's flavored. It's a very delicious snack, but it's also a very, very important ingredient. It's a very important ingredient for the Indian sweets. The Kaju Katli, it's a very widely consumed Indian sweet. Along with that, you get a lot of Kaju or a cashew based sweets that are sold in India. And not only sweets, it's also the Punjabi gravy, right? I mean, the food that the restaurants use a lot of cashews to make those Punjabi food that we all love to consume. So it's a very, very important dry fruit and a nut, which goes beyond snacking and ingredient as a sweet or a confectionery. It is actually consumed as a home cooked or a restaurant cooked food as well. So by far, cashew is the most consumed nut in India, even more than almonds. And almonds come second to cashews consumption in India. If we were to put cashew consumption on a B2B level, that will be another like 15, 16,000 crore industry. So it is that big an industry which a lot of people do not understand or realize, because we feel that it's a very niche. Dry fruits are a very niche product, and their consumption is only for the upper class or the rich of India. It's not the case. Cashews have also been priced very, very competitively, and they have stayed very, very affordable for the average Indian consumer, and hence they are also consumed in a big way in India. The third product I would want to deal or touch upon is walnuts. Now, walnuts, because of the shape of the walnuts, when you look at walnuts, it looks like brain, and so it's associated with brain power and again healthy muscles and healthy heart. It's again a superfood. You can consume as many walnuts as you want. They are great for your health. It is an Indian product. Again, it was always grown in Jammu and Kashmir, paradise in India. Beautiful, beautiful place in India, and was and is still a major walnut growing region in India. Much like cashews, walnuts also couldn't keep up in terms of production pace with the growing consumption in India. So again, walnuts also have to be now imported. The Indian production doesn't suffice the Indian consumption. Now, where are these imported from? Primarily from Chile, a Latin American country which produces beautiful walnuts. They look beautiful, they taste fantastic. So the walnut trade in India has grown many fold. I would say again, like almonds, probably we've doubled our walnut consumption in the last 4 to 5 years, and it's growing at an average rate of 20% each year. Along with Chile, California also produces a lot of walnuts, and they also supply a lot of walnuts to India. Another major player in the walnut trade globally is China. So China used to be the biggest export market for California and Chile a few years back. However, China themselves have started growing walnuts, and in a big way, to the extent that today they are actually a net exporter of walnuts and not an importer. So they've grown so much that they can suffice their domestic consumption and can also now export to the world. Although India doesn't buy from China because the quality of Chinese walnuts is not acceptable in India. Walnut would be around 4,000 odd crores in terms of B2B market. And it's again a superfood, and it's growing rapidly. I would like to touch upon the fourth major nut in dry fruit basket, that is pistachios. And pistachios is probably the later entrant into this club of nuts and dry fruits in India. It's always been there. It was used to come from Iran again. But of late, of last 5 to 8 years, the pistachio consumption has just grown exponentially because it's a very tasty snack. When roasted and salted, it is a fantastic snack. It's a high source of plant-based protein, omega-3 acids. It's fantastic in terms of the nutrient profile as well. So again, pistachios used to first come from Iran. Now they come a lot from California and some from Turkey as well. India doesn't grow pistachios. We've never grown pistachios, but I think in future, I think Indian conditions do support pistachio production. I'm part of the Nuts and Dry Fruits Council of India, which was formed 6 months back, and the council was formed mainly to promote consumption in India, nuts and dry fruits consumption in India, but also production in India. So one of the things that we feel that we as an association should and will do is promote production of these nuts and dry fruits in India, so that a lot of foreign exchange is protected. We do not pay for something that we are consuming so much. So that's the dream going forward as an association, and NDFC, National Nuts and Dry Fruit Association of India. These are the four main prominent nuts that I touched upon in terms of their potential in India, how much they are growing. On an average, the growth of all these four is going to be anywhere between 10 to 25% between the commodities that we are talking about. And the future seems very exciting with a 1.4 billion population growing, and the growing middle class, and the purchasing power that we see with the young Indians and a favorable demographic. We feel that this dry fruit market is really going to explode in terms of consumption. We already are probably largest or second largest consumers of some of these products. Going forward, we are surely going to be largest in all the commodities, all dry fruits. that we are consuming, and by far the largest. I'll move to some of the other dry fruits that are pretty famous and consumed in a big way. And I'll touch upon raisins. So raisins, kismis is something, again, being an Indian product, we've been consuming that since a long time, grown in Maharashtra, Sangli, and in some other parts of South India, around say, some parts of Andhra and Karnataka as well. But a delicious product. It's sweet, and it complements almonds, cashews, and pistachios very well as a gifting commodity. When Diwali gifts are sent. Plus, it has a lot of health benefits, of course, like any dry fruits, and it's consumed in a big way. So we do import raisins as well, but India's production is quite good, and it suffices, I think, 60% of India's raisins need. We import raisins, high quality raisins from places like Afghanistan, Iran, and Turkey as well, and some raisins from Chile as well. Other dry fruits that are very famous and are widely consumed in India is figs and apricot. Figs is anjeer, and apricot is your jardalu that we know. And these two products come from Afghanistan mainly. Now, again, beautiful products, very high nutrient profile, and superfoods again. And their consumption is, of course, growing by the day, and it's going to continue to keep growing. Although there is a limitation to what Afghanistan can produce and supply. So we've started getting substitutes from, say, places like Turkey, which produce figs and apricots as well. Their form and taste is different, but they're finding a lot of acceptance in India now of late. The other nuts that we import are hazelnuts, Brazilian nuts, pecans. Now, these are very exotic nuts, their consumption, and macadamias as well. So these products are imported, but the consumption is really not that big. They are expensive as well, and generally people stick to the more widely consumed nuts like almonds, cashews, pistachios, walnuts. Although these products again have a fantastic future in India, as Indian audience tries to experiment and gets into more and more products which are exotic and are more appealing to, or more in line with the global innovation and trends that we see. So, I may have missed out on a couple of smaller nuts and dry fruits, but largely these are the nuts and dry fruits that form the Indian dry fruit basket. They are consumed as snacks. They are consumed as ingredients. They go in ice creams. They go in chocolates. They go in sweets. You will see a lot of innovation now happening with a lot of chocolates that are coming up with walnut flavor, pecans, almonds, ice creams. You may find roasted almond ice cream is one of the most selling ice creams in India, and with pistachios as being a very good snack, it's also replacing a lot of junk that we consume today as snack. Now, I discussed about the products and where they come from, and what are the potential, or what is the potential of these products in India, right? But there are challenges, as in any industry, as in any commodity. It's not easy, as I mentioned, to kind of source these products and keep them fresh, and bring these dry fruits to your table as in a very good form. So what are the challenges? We'll discuss one by one. One of the biggest challenges is actually the tariffs, right? So if you look at the tariffs that are imposed on some of these dry fruits, walnuts attract 100% duties and tariffs. So that's pretty high. That's pretty steep for any commodity. So that's mainly to protect the Indian industry, and we understand why this has been done. But what it does is it limits the amount of walnuts that can come into India, and whatever walnuts do come into India are very expensive for the consumers. So I think once that tariff is regularized, and we as an association are representing to the government and requesting them if they can reduce the tariffs, that would rationalize the trade and bring in more quality walnuts into India at a reasonable price. Some of the other dry fruits are also in a high tariff bracket. And eventually, I think as India progresses and as we rationalize tariffs on most commodities, we believe that these tariffs will be rationalized going forward on all the dry fruits as well. The other challenge that we see is the global sanctions. Now, there's a lot of geopolitical tension that's going on in the world right now. There are wars going on, and then there are other things where the United Nations and United States and other government agencies are putting sanctions on countries which produce nuts and dry fruits. And prominent among them would be Iran. Iran is one of the prominent dry fruit suppliers, but because of the sanctions imposed on Iran, the trade with Iran is a very challenging trade. It's not easy to bring in Iranian products because of the regulatory challenges that exist with regards to foreign trade with Iran. So we hope as a dry fruit industry that in some time, in some days to or some months from now, things would regularize and the sanctions would be lifted so that the trade can open up and we can bring more and more quality dry fruits from countries like Iran, Afghanistan into India and at a very affordable and reasonable price. The third challenge that we are seeing again is a little connected to war, which is logistics. So recently we saw a lot of attacks happening on ships which were carrying merchandise, right? So because of that, a lot of shipping routes or shipping channels have been stopped, and which is making logistics expensive. Second, the lead times really go up. Typically, I mean, a product from California would take like 45 days to reach India. Now, with the issues that are going on seas and with the governments and the fighting and the war, the lead times have gone up to 75 to 80 days, and in some cases even 90 days. Now, what happens with this is uh, in transit, the quality of the product may deteriorate, right? It's not very ideal to keep a product in a containerized form for such a long time. So, as an industry, that is one of the challenges that we are facing today, wherein we struggle to provide high quality walnuts and other dry fruits to the consumers. If the lead time is beyond a certain specific permissible limit. So we hope that the geopolitical tensions would subside in the coming days, and we move back to a more rationalized shipping schedules and the voyage times, so that there is no quality deterioration in the process, and also there is no delay in giving the consumers their more delicious snack. Uh, One more thing that really is a challenge for countries globally is not really challenge, but it's a dynamic between the countries. So you have trade agreements, right? So between friendly countries, you have favorable trade agreements, and the non-friendly or not so friendly countries, the trade agreements are not very favorable. So when you have a trade agreement which favors one nation, the trade shifts to that nation, and a lot of their product is then imported, and the product from the other country which has not got into a trade agreement suffers, and so sometimes it may not the quality of the product may not be the best from the country we are importing. It may be probably better from a country which is non trade agreement country, but this is something which is a very geopolitical thing, and it's good for countries who are in trade agreements, but it's sometimes some countries do suffer because they have not been able to secure a trade agreement with a particular country. Fifth challenge that we see here is with regards to regulations, local regulations, which change from time to time. And the industry finds it difficult to cope up with the sudden changes that happen now. What are these changes? These are changes with regards to, say, FSSAI norms. The country or the rule of the country would define these norms periodically and would assess and change these things periodically. Now, whatever they are doing is based on a certain assumptions and not assumptions, but rather observations, and the rules are enforced for protecting the buyers within that country. So we completely understand that. However, what happens is that it puts the trade in a short-term shock, as in if there is a certain regulation that comes in which was not planned, then the supplier country takes time to adjust to those regulations, and the supply is kind of delayed or is compromised during that period. So again, with I think the global treaties and the consensus that people are building globally, I think we should have a more rationalized regulation throughout the globe, and and more countries will have similar regulations going forward. So this this temporary shock that the trade suffers is also kind of uh, regulated and covered going forward. Other than that, I think the challenges would be in terms of pricing, demand supply mismatches. So with the global climate challenges that we are facing, there are times when the crops suffer. There are times when the crops are much lower, and the prices increase. When the prices increases, price increases, the consumers end up paying more for their products that they have been paying less all these while. But that's another thing that really we cannot control. It's part of the whole demand supply dynamics of a commodity. And all said and done, with all these challenges in place, I think we are in a fantastic space. Nuts and dry fruits. It's a great commodity to be in as an importer, as a processor, as a trader, and as a consumer. It's a fantastic product to consume. It's a superfood. It has just benefits and benefits. There could be some cons, but it's mostly pros and very less cons in terms of consuming nuts and dry fruits. So that's about it. I've tried to explain in short the trade of nuts and dry fruits in India, the opportunities we have, and also the challenges it possesses. Over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sameer, for a very informative talk and details. We'll now take up some questions.
Yes.
1 second. Yeah. So the first question is, what are the current trends in global dry fruits trade, particularly in terms of import, export volumes, and market dynamics?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, 1 second. What are the current trends in global dry fruit trade, particularly in terms of import or export volumes and market dynamics?
Current trends.
Yes.
So at present, I think the world is in a oversupply mode, as in most commodities have bumper crops, and they are pretty affordable and cheap, and the global trade is really growing in terms of volumes. If I talk about almonds is a 3 billion pound, or in terms of revenue, it's like a $6 billion export industry out of California. uh, in terms of volumes, again, 3 billion pounds. And in cashews, I think I may not have the number offhand, but in terms of volumes, all commodities are being produced at their lifetime high crop sizes and being supplied to the world. In terms of pricing, all prices are in regulation, are controlled because of the excess supply and lesser demand. And because of that, we are seeing more and more demand growing this year, and it will continue to be the case in the next 2 3 years. Although 2 3 years from now, we do see supply dropping and demand overtaking supply, and thereby the prices should go up after a few years. Like after a couple of years, the prices of these commodities should go up.
Okay. And could you provide insights into the most commonly imported dry fruits globally and their respective market shares?
Yes, so the number one dry fruit in the world is almonds. It is in terms of production, it has the highest production in the world, and it is exported to almost all the countries, almost 160 plus countries. It is exported into. So almonds is the number one in terms of the nuts and dry fruit trade globally. Second would be, I think, cashews and pistachios. Cashews is big in India, but globally it's not as big as almonds. So number two would be cashews, and number three would be pistachios. Pistachios is a 1.5 billion plus 5.5 billion, 2 billion pound market globally, and cashews would be around 1.5 billion to 2 billion pound market. Other than that, all other commodities are much smaller. Walnuts is growing, and but other nuts and berries are pretty minuscule in terms of their contribution to the global dry fruit trade.
Okay. And what factors contribute to the fluctuation in prices of imported dry fruits, and how can importers mitigate risk associated with price volatility?
Yes, so I did cover this point partially when I was explaining the dry fruit trade. So there are risks, as I mentioned, that there are a lot of climatic risks in terms of global warming and what it does to the crops. And we have seen in the past that crops have been damaged, and because of that, the prices go up. So we as importers, we try to preempt that. We try to foresee whether the prices or the supply is going to be challenged going forward, and try to plan our purchases accordingly so that we can have our supplies well before and at a very reasonable price before the prices increase or before the supply crunch happens. And so we as importers try our best to get the product at the best possible price to the consumers, and also protecting our margins in the process. Along with that, there are currency fluctuations which kind of determine the price increase or decrease for a commodity. So we try to hedge our positions in terms of our dollar exchange exposure, and try to minimize the losses, or try to minimize the cost to the consumer, thereby. So as importers, we try our best to preempt and to give the consumers the cheapest possible price and the best possible product.
Okay. And next question. Are there any specific regulations or standards that importers need to be aware of when importing dry fruits from different countries?
Yes, so different commodities have their different regulations that need to be followed, especially fumigation and phytosanitary needs, and aflatoxin, and all other terms and parameters that are very relevant to that commodity and a product, and to the country as well. So we have in India, we have the FSSAI that controls or governs the food safety norms for products that are imported. They look into the products profile in terms of whether it's consumable or not, whether it's acceptable to the Indian rules and regulations. Along with that, they look at the labeling requirement of the product. Then the phytosanitary department and the other weights and measure departments also look into whether the product is meeting to the Indian standards or not. Plus, you have the Customs Department of India and the GST. All the regulations. As an importer, you really have to be aware of these regulations when you are importing a certain product, right? You cannot be ignorant of law and be importing a product, because that's not acceptable. And we are dealing with food commodity like food products. It can be harmful if the import of wrong products is done, and products that do not abide by the food safety norms and other norms of the country. So yes, as an importer, you should be aware, and we as an association, NDFC, are there to support any willing person or any person who is new to this industry and wants to know more about nuts and dry fruits. We will provide all the information that is required, and you can take your decision based on that.
Okay. And how do logistical challenges such as transportation and storage impact the importation of dry fruits? And what strategies can importers adapt to overcome these challenges?
Yes, again, I mentioned this in my brief. So there is very little an importer can actually do when there is a geopolitical tension or an issue, and places like Red Sea and all other channels where the product moves are blocked. So we really do not have control on the voyage time or the shipping issues. However, with our experience, we try our best in terms of uh, going through all the shipping lines and understanding their schedules and their routes, and based on that we take our decision and ask a particular shipping line to kind of service our product and bring those product at the with the lowest possible tat and at the best possible price. Another challenge which I actually missed out and I should have mentioned, and you rightly pointed out, is the challenge of storage in India. Right. So once the goods are arrived in India or received in India, they are not immediately consumed always, and we need to store them. And products which are sensitive to temperature, considering India is a very hot country, right? Most of the places in India are have temperatures which range from 30 to 40 degrees Celsius. That's not very ideal for dry fruits to be kept outside. So one of the challenges that we as importers are facing today is the cold chains that are there existing in the country. I think India needs to build more cold chains and more cold warehouses so that we can keep more like sensitive products for a longer period of time, and thereby give the consumers a fresh product every time, even though the product may have arrived, say, 3 months, 6 months prior. By keeping them in a cold storage, we can ensure that the product is very fresh to the consumer when it reaches the consumer. So we as importers, we are encouraging a lot of private cold chains to put up cold storages. Some of the larger importers have their own cold storages. So as importers, we are doing our best to make this supply chain as efficient as possible and as revenue efficient as possible for all stakeholders.
Okay. And can you discuss the potential benefits and drawbacks of sourcing dry fruits from different regions or countries?
Oh yes, absolutely. So as I mentioned, the nuts and dry fruits, they come from all parts of the world, and without the globalization, we wouldn't have been able to source these products, and or wouldn't have even known that these products existed in those countries. So we as importers, we take part in trade shows, we take part in seminars, we attend, and we go to these countries, travel through the farms, and try to source the best possible product which is right fit for the Indian consumers from these countries. And through the efforts of the importers over the last 30 years, we've been able to source products right from, as I said, Chile, then Argentina, Brazil. You have products coming in from all around USA and Africa. Then you have products coming in from Middle East. So I think with the efforts of importers and with globalization and with this whole information flow that we have, we've been able to source more and more products, more tastier products, more nutritious products for the Indian consumer. And I think the hunt is on. I think we will continue to source varied products, new products which we have not seen or which we are not used to coming into India. To name some of them, cranberries, blueberries, and goji berries, all these berries and all are very new to India. They've just arrived 5 to 10 years back, and I think more and more products are on the way, and Indian consumers will be spoiled for choice. I think going forward with the kind of dry fruits we'll be able to source from across the globe.
Okay. And yeah, what are some emerging market opportunities for importing dry fruits, and how can importers capitalize on them?
Emerging market opportunities in India, right?
Yeah,
Globally.
globally. I'll repeat. What are some emerging market opportunities for importing dry fruits, and how can importers capitalize on them?
So if I were to talk about just India, purely India, in terms of what are the opportunities and which geographies within India are the growth markets, I would say North and West have always been traditionally dry fruit consuming regions of India. Of late, I would say in the last 20 years, Southern India has emerged like anything. It's the consumption has just, I think, blown out of proportion in South India with more disposable income coming in and the educated population that is there in Southern India. The consumption has really grown. So that's one market that is really an emerging market and has been the growth driver for India in the last 20 years in terms of consumption, along with West and North, of course. Now, if you look at the region that is left out or that has not grown as much as, say, South, West, or North, is the East of India, which is now growing in terms of dry fruit. I mean, it was always consumed. Dry fruits were always consumed there, but of late, East is now really becoming the next emerging territory where we as importers feel that a lot of our products are going to go in East India. So that's about Indian, perspective. If I talk about global perspective, India and China are the growth drivers. India and China are the consumption drivers for all the dry fruits across the world. With the 2.8 billion population, that's massive. So India and China are the mainstay of global emerging trends and global consumption. Add to that Middle East, which is now becoming an economic powerhouse. So Middle East has now become a very big dry fruit consumer of the world, and Southeast Asia, of course, with Indonesia, Thailand and Malaysia, and all these places are really consuming a lot of dry fruits. When I talk about Europe and US, they are matured markets. They have been consuming dry fruits and they have reached a level where they cannot grow exponentially or in double digits like in India or China. They are growing by roughly 2 to 4% annually, not beyond that, because they're sitting at a very high base. Plus, their populations are not growing. Their population is stagnant. The economic growth is also very stagnant. So a lot of this consumption that we are seeing is linked to population and the economic growth of that country. So we feel globally, India, China, number one drivers. Number two will be Middle East and Southeast Asia and Africa as well. Going forward in the next 5 to 10 years, Africa is going to become a powerhouse of dry fruit consumption.
Okay. Yeah, just a couple of more questions. Are there any sustainability considerations that importers should take into account when sourcing dry fruits from different suppliers?
Can you repeat the first part? What are the?
Are there any sustainability considerations that importers should take into account when sourcing dry fruits from different suppliers?
No, absolutely. I think we are now in a day and age where everyone is responsible for what's happening, and we as importers are being very very responsible and aware of our suppliers and our supplying countries. We tend to we support countries which which follow the global sustainability norms, and we want to support those countries and suppliers who are more environment aware and more aware of utilization of resources. So we are seeing this trend everywhere. California has been in a perpetual drought for last 30 to 40 years, although last 2 years have been better. But we see the way they are trying to farm the products with as less consumption of natural resources as possible, trying to protect the environment and giving it back to the environment as well. So I think this whole community is united in the global sustainability efforts, and we as importers are all for it and are going to support it wholeheartedly going forward.
Okay. How do quality control and food safety measures factor into the importation process of dry fruits, and what steps can importers take to ensure product integrity?
No, excellent question. I think a lot of consumers do not know or are not aware of the channel that really is behind what they consume. And we are consumers as well. So we do not really think how this is handled throughout the entire channel. But there is a lot of process, a lot of check and balance involved to bring the right product with the right food safety norms to the consumer. So as I said, we have the FSSAI regulator in India who is checking whether all the products that come into India fit into the norms of the country in terms of food consumption. That is part one. That is government ensuring that all the products that come into India are as per the standards. However, once they enter India, right, they are being handled by a lot of people. It doesn't directly go from the port to the consumer. So we as importers, we as processors have additional responsibility to make sure that the product that has entered India in the right form is maintained and is hygienically handled and is packed in the right way, and the consumer receives it in the most hygienic way. So our company is a BRC certified company, which is the topmost hygiene standard in the world, British Retail Consortium affiliated standards. So we handle the product with extreme care and extreme hygienic conditions. So we make sure that the consumer really gets the best product, which is free from any bacterial contamination, is free from anything that is not meant for the consumers. So and we are seeing this trend across India, where the handlers and the processors and even the transporters are becoming more and more aware and are putting in checks and balances and processes to make sure that the product stays in the right form and reaches the consumer in the right way. So I think the process is on. We are doing our best, and going forward, you're going to see more and more innovation, more and more investments into this segment, and I think we'll continue to grow and become more matured in the way we handle the product.
Okay. So, last question. In your opinion, what are the key success factors for importers in the global trade of dry fruits, and what advice would you offer to those looking to enter this market?
I think the number one thing that the importers need to understand and be aware is they need to have all the data and have all the information before getting into a market like this. It's a very complex market to source product and to make margins out of the products, right? So there has to be a thorough analysis, thorough study of the products that you're getting into, competitor analysis, country-wise analysis. What is the potential of the product in future, and what is the value addition you can do to the product. So it's a very commodity driven, or it's a commodity market, so to say, in terms of the way we handle nuts and dry fruits in India. However, in the last 5 to 10 years, we are seeing a lot of innovation happening in the dry fruit space. So if you were to enter into this space, my advice to you would be, if you can do something more with your dry fruits. You're just not doing a commodity trading. If you're going to add value to the product, you should get into this business. If not, then you should really be aware of the risks that are associated with getting into commodity business. It's a cyclical business. It's a price sensitive business. The pricing is very dynamic. You may end up making a lot of money, or you may end up losing a lot of money. So you really need to be aware of the risks associated with this market, and only then you should really enter this space. There is lots to do. There is a lot of potential. If you are good, if you are fit, you will survive and you will flourish.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Sameer, I don't see any more questions from our participants. So now we have come to end of question round. On behalf of agricultureinformation.com, we'd like to thank you for a very detailed talk and answering all the questions in depth. And we also like to thank all the participants for joining this meeting. The meeting will now be closed. Have a good and safe weekend.
Thank you so much for having me on the.
Most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.